What's up, Denver? Chris Lopez here, and today's podcast episode is our quarterly updates on ADUs and what's happening around Denver and Colorado. I have our expert and co-host for the day, Stacy Rozansky with Envision Advisors. Stacy, how are you?
Doing well. Excited to go through these updates.
Yes, I know we got some new neighborhood updates changing their ADU rezoning. We've got 6 issues identified so far with the Denver committee. A sneak peek at some cost of building an ADU, basement ADU out. And before we jump in all that, we were talking before the show about just how do we get more expertise on this show, and we are going to put together a panel in the future. So if anyone out there has expertise in their ADUs, we always love networking in there. So builders, lenders, investors, anyone in that space, reach out to us. We always want to have news and guests and potential panelists on our quarterly updates. So Stacy, jumping into the neighborhood rezoning, what is going on?
Yeah, so the latest rezoning, full rezoning for a neighborhood-wide was in the Regis neighborhood, Northwest Denver, lining up with its neighboring neighborhoods, Chaffee Park, Sloan's Lake, that have already been rezoned neighborhood-wide. So that was kind of the big city council passed that one.
So what does that mean? So you said basically the same updates they did to Sloan's and where's the other?
Chaffee Park.
So, okay, so just same updates to there?
Yep. So now you don't need to rezone your property to build an ADU on it. It's saying every property in this neighborhood is eligible for an ADU. Still have to follow the standards for ADU building. But yeah, this graphic kind of shows that there's just over 1,000 parcels that in that neighborhood that are now eligible for ADUs.
So I think the article said, because this is off Denver, right? What, 1,025 parcels is what got rezoned?
Exactly, yeah.
And I mean, so put that in the context for us. What type of impact does it have on the market? Or do you think it'll have impact on the market?
I don't think it's a huge impact. It's just that we're seeing this overall trend, especially in district. This neighborhood is in District 1. That's council member Amanda Sandoval, who is really pushing for this ADU rezoning in all of her neighborhoods within her district. So we're just seeing that that's the trend and other neighborhoods are catching on.
But she's kind of like leading the charge, It sounds like.
Mm-hmm, okay. Exactly.
And how many districts are there do you know? Because I'm not super familiar with the structure or anything.
I don't know the total amount.
Yeah. So on here, something before we actually hit record on here, we pull up this article and there's a beautiful image of a ADU. It's detached ADU in the backyard. It's a side view from the sidewalk. It's painted flipper gray with white trim. Gorgeous. And you know this place.
Yeah, this is actually an ADU project I worked on. It's in the Westwood neighborhood, and it is become kind of the stock photo for Denverite, at least that they always use it when they're doing an ADU article. So kind of cool to see.
Yeah, I love it. So if you guys see this, you know that Stacy was involved in that project. When was do you remember when that was completed?
Oh, jog my memory. It probably 2018, 19.
Okay, so
around there.
3-4 years ago or so. Okay, cool. All right, so in terms of updates, anything else going on outside of neighborhoods or outside of Regis?
The article just states that West Highlands neighborhood will be kind of the next neighborhood on the docket to apply for and hopefully pass rezoning neighborhood wide. And then just to kind of reiterate the other neighborhoods that have already passed it, we talked about Sloan's Lake, Chaffee Park, East Colfax, Villa Park, Barnum, and Barnum West have also approved rezoning neighborhood wide for ADUs.
Okay. It's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out, like as these, like was 1,025 lots got rezoned, as it plays out, like what percent of those, for every 1,000 lots that are rezoned, that equals 5 ADUs or 20 ADUs. Like, I'm really curious how that plays out over the next, it's going to take years to see that data.
That would be
if
cool.
we ever can track it, but it'd be really interesting to see. And if anyone has a crystal ball out there, let us know your bets on that because I'm really interested in how those numbers would play out. All right. So second main topic, you were telling me earlier how the Denver ADU committee has identified 6 main issues.
Yeah.
What are they and what does it all mean?
Yeah, so I've been following along with the ADU committee. They meet once a month or once every 6 weeks, and it's open to the public to kind of listen in. But this was put out that this is the 6 main issues they've identified so far. I'll just read them off, and then we can talk about them. But minimum lot size, height in stories, building coverage exemption, bulk plane height, and reuse of existing structures and setbacks. So that's a lot of zoning and building code language right there.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, it shows that, and this is true, ADUs are actually one of the most regulated building forms in the zoning code. And so that is restrictive to what you can do. You know, we all know no property is made equal. Then so it makes it really hard to fit these structures on your lot following all of these guidelines.
So basically, the 6 main issues are just kind of pointing out the obvious that ADUs are complex and they're highly regulated.
Right.
Okay. But you were sharing out some different examples earlier, like, hey, an ADU is limited to this, but you could do this, this, or this. Like, it was some very interesting context you gave where it sounds like ADUs get a lot of heat.
Right.
When it shouldn't just be focused on ADUs.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that also is, part of the committee, what they're trying to do is remove barriers so that more people can more easily build ADUs on their property. And so all of these things that they've identified, they're also pretty costly and make ADUs even more expensive to build as well. I think we were talking when we get into the next article about kind of focus on how do you build ADUs in a suburban context, which there are a lot of suburban contexts inside the city of Denver as well. But I think I'm glad to see that they're pointing this out, these regulations out, because why not be able to have a tiny home in your backyard as an ADU?
Yep, great. All right, so the next article, moving on to there, what stood out to you? I'm going to show on the screen here. Give us a rundown on what stood out.
Yeah, this one was really just talking about the kind of, piggybacking off of what we're just talking about, but design standards for ADUs. Again, they do have a lot of regulations, and they're kind of recognizing in the committee that each Denver neighborhood is a little different, and how do we that maybe having one set of design standards for all ADUs isn't the right way to go about it.
Can you give us an example, just how like a blanket design standards and how it just square peg round hole?
Yeah, so I think for ADUs, a lot of them are, the idea of them is that they would be built off an alleyway. So that in itself, not every lot has an alleyway in Denver, and so how do we adjust that for, people that want them, but, are in the middle of a neighborhood and don't have access to that? So how do we make the, still efficient design that way? Or even corner lots, or, there's just so many different things that could come up. So I think they're realizing, hey, maybe we can be a little bit more flexible with that.
Do they have any proposed solutions in there, or how to, because I understand it, but it seems like a very complex answer and complex strategy to implement.
Yeah, I don't think yet, but so I actually was invited to kind of sit in on a subcommittee on the ADU committee just for suburban context. I happen to live in a suburban Denver neighborhood, and I think more and more people, we have bigger lots in the suburban neighborhood, so they do could be conducive to ADUs, but we don't have alleyways. So it's just trying to figure out what's, going to work for most people in the neighborhood.
Okay. And I want to get this in here. And you had mentioned earlier, ADUs are restricted to building such and such height, but you could do the main house such and such height. You could do this with the garage. Give us those numbers, because that's I think with the design build and the 6 main issues, it's very interesting when you gave actual hey, here are other options you can do besides just an ADU.
Yeah, I think when the thing I think about is when people give pushback about ADUs, a big thing that comes up for people is privacy, right? Especially I think in the suburban context where people have more larger lots. They value their privacy. But something to think about that always comes to mind for me. So an ADU right now, it can be 1.5 stories. So yeah, if somebody put that in their backyard, they would definitely be able to see into your yard, most likely. But your neighbor right now, without asking your permission, could knock down their house and build up to 35 feet. They're a 35-foot tall house. And
so that's like next to what, 10, 12 feet taller than the ADU?
Yeah. And that would definitely look directly into your backyard as well. So I think when you kind of can weigh the options and how much more, shade would that provide on your yard, a much taller building and much bigger in scale. And right now they don't have to ask your permission to do that. That's just allowed on, I think, any Denver lot. And same thing with a garage. Garages right now have 0 setback line. So a garage can be, I think, 17 feet tall and be right on your property line. So granted, no one's living in a garage, but still it would be a big structure kind of.
It's also around the property line.
Right.
Like that's something
really close.
That would be.
So that's, I think, why they're discussing, setbacks for ADUs and different things so that, they're trying to incorporate what makes sense for most people.
Are they, I guess, and then putting the context with those other things that you pointed out to try to make it somewhat more uniform?
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to go the more uniform route or like just where the idea is how do we make it more accessible?
All right. And moving on to the next topic here. And this is just a sneak peek because we're going to actually record a video just for YouTube only because you recently completed a special project, right, Stacy?
I did.
What is a project? Give us a sneak peek.
Well, I finished out my basement in a way that could be considered as an attached ADU. So putting in a kitchen, putting in the egress windows, rearranging some things so it could be its own separate little unit.
Yeah, so we'll do a little case study in here because we got numbers and photos. We'll dive into that topic on the video. So we'll link that in the show notes. And whether you're doing like an ADU, an ADU in the basement, mother-in-law suite, we have a ton of clients asking about what it costs, how to do it. We have a lot of clients doing it. I've done it myself. So it's just a really good, update as to how it works and an estimated cost. So Stacy, thanks so much for these updates. This was great. All the notes and links we'll put in the show notes so people can go out there and view it. And of course, if they have questions, they can reach out to you.
Yep. We'll
put your email and everything in the show notes. So if you guys have interest in buying or selling, obviously reach out to Stacy. She knows the space very well. If you have general questions or comments on ADUs, let us know as well, because this is a great way that we use to network. And Stacy does a great job of kind of being like the center point to talk to everyone and kind of like disseminate all the information and then come back and tell us on the podcast.
Yeah. And actually, we have a couple more deal analysis coming up because we've done some recent ADU transactions with some people that are going to start building an ADU. And some that renovated an existing ADU. So those will be some exciting podcasts to watch out for.
Yes. Thanks for reminding us. All right, Stacy, thank you. And listeners, let us know what questions you have.